Everything you desire is waiting for you to claim it. There's no creating involved, only invention through imagination and building through action. You are at the center of all your desires, dreams, and achievements. Welcome to Designing Your Life Today, the podcast that's all about your success, achieving your goals, building wealth through your business, and building your most passionate, powerful, magnificent life. Discover ways to use your purpose to connect you to serving others and living your dreams. I am Pat Council, and I know you are built by design to win. And it all begins with knowing how to tap into your success energy. Let's get on the path of discovery, decisive action, development, and unwavering dedication to your life's calling. It's time to embark on a transformative journey where your deepest passions become your most rewarding achievements. Embrace your power to shape your destiny, because this is your moment to do life with power. Hello, Power Up Nation. I'm Pat Council. And on Designing Your Life Today, we're going to talk about why you must know yourself. Take the time to get to know you, not just who someone else says you are or some identity that someone else has given you, but you must get to know you. So let's talk a little bit about that. On this podcast, I'm always saying that you're built by design to win. And I say that because when you understand who you truly are, how you were made, what you were made to do or be, or who you were made to be, then I think things begin to fall into place for you a lot better and sometimes a lot faster. It is important that you recognize who you are. I'm also sharing that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. And so when you can understand that, then you will buy into the idea that you are, in fact, a purposeful creation, that you are not here by mistake. So what is the big deal about all of that? The big deal is that if you don't know yourself, then you won't make any kind of impact in this world. In other words, you may be thinking, I don't want to make an impact. But here's what I'm saying to you. You will live with the idea that you are less than, or that you're not good enough, or that you don't know enough, or that you aren't strong enough, or smart enough, or whatever the case is, that you're not disciplined enough. Oh, I could never do that. And so you live thinking these kinds of things. But when you start to get to know yourself, then you start to fully embrace you. Years ago, when I first got into real estate, and this has been a long time, this has been more than 25 years ago. And when I first got into real estate, I met my first mentor, I want to say, or maybe he was my second, but he was such a great mentor. And he was an insurance agent. He owned a huge insurance company. And I met him. And I want to say it wasn't by mistake, but I want to say it wasn't intentional. But you know what? Serendipity does kick in. And it did kick in that day. And so I was brand new. This is my very first closing. I didn't know I needed homeowners insurance because my broker didn't tell me I needed homeowners insurance. And so when it was probably within 3 hours before the closing, that's when I got a call from the attorney's office saying to me, hey, where's the homeowner's insurance? And I said, homeowner's insurance? And they said, yeah, you can't close without it. And so I explained to them, I said, well, I'm new, but let me ask my broker, let me find out. Well, my broker was not there, but his assistant was there, and she was the assistant for the entire office. And she said, well, maybe you could call an insurance agent. There happened to be a card that was laying on a table where the broker kept cards from different companies that had different services that we might need. So I picked up that card. It was the only one left. I picked up that card and I called that office. That's how I met Actually, okay, my first mentor, as I'm saying it, telling the story. And so as a result of that, he said, I always take new clients to lunch. And so I said to him, and we're talking over the phone, and I said, well, your client, isn't that the person who's purchasing the homeowner's insurance from you? He said, no, you're going to be my client because you'll bring me more referrals. So I met him for lunch, and after talking a few hours, I learned that, wow, there's so much more to life than what I really knew and what I had been taught. And he was he was an older gentleman. He was an amazing person. And as we sat there and we talked, I marveled at the idea of how much he knew. And in my mind, I was thinking how much I did not know, but all I knew is I needed to learn more. The point that I'm making here is I asked him if he could share information with me from time to time that would help me become better in sales. He was a very busy person. And he says, well, I don't have a lot of time, but if you run into trouble or you get stumped with something you don't know, call my office and eventually I will get back to you. Well, we talked a few more times, and this is over the series of a few months. And then one day he said something to me. He took me to lunch again. He says, I want to take you to lunch, because by this time I had become the top producer. I was becoming the top producer in that real estate office. And he thought, this is a person I need to really make sure I stay friends with, or a referral base that I stay connected to. So he took me to lunch again. He says, well, I'd like you to take you to lunch again. He took me to lunch again. And then he said something that I imagine I will never forget. And he says, I can tell from talking to you. He said, you have a lot of gifts. And I said, really? Because I had no idea. I didn't really think of talking as a gift. I didn't even think of singing as a gift. So I didn't think of writing, being able to write as a gift, and to write to convey a message along with a feeling in that message. I didn't think of any of these things as gifts. And he says, you have a lot of gifts. And I asked him, really? I was really surprised. And here's what he said to me. He said, listen, when you learn what you're capable of, and you learn about all the gifts that you have, he says, no one will ever be able to take advantage of you and your gifts. But as long as you don't think that you have anything to offer this world, other people will see it and they'll use it to benefit themselves. He was not wrong. And I'm not going to go into examples of how that played out. But I took what he said to heart, and I thought, wow, I need to find out, what am I made of? So today I'm talking about that because the minute we hear something or we see something through the news, or we hear something that's happened, people start to immediately identify with it. They immediately identify with it as though it's happening to them. And I get it. As human beings, a lot of times we have that kind of empathy or that kind of compassion, and such that we empathize or sympathize with what's happened to a person because we've either been through it, or we can just empathize with it because of compassion. But the point that I'm making is we sometimes adopt it and put it in our fear box and make it a part of ourselves. And so we find another reason to be afraid of living life to the fullest. We find another reason to be afraid of doing life with power. And so with that being said, when it comes to knowing yourself, it is important that you know yourself, again, because you won't have any impact in this world. Back to the same mentor, he also told me something to that effect. He said, I would be able to use my own gifts and talents, and no one would ever be able to use them without my permission. He says, then you'll know what you're worth. He says, you'll know what you bring to the table. And then finally, he told me, you'll know what you're on this earth to accomplish. Why are you here? I had never thought in terms of being here to do anything other than get a job and make sure I could earn a living so I could take care of myself. That was it. That's a lot of us have been taught that. All right. Make sure you grow up, get a job so that you can take care of yourself. And without the additional knowledge that lets a person know that there's something more to them, and that there's a purpose for their lives. And perhaps there's even a calling and a higher calling on their lives without people even thinking that. Our society is starting to make that shift towards, I guess, a kind of socialism. And no, this is not about politics. However, it is a little bit about politics in the sense that because people don't know who they really are, what they're capable of doing, how they're built, that they're fearfully and wonderfully made, they think that their salvation in terms of someone paying their bills and making sure that they survive, it is to be left up to the government. So you find a lot of people that rely on the government for these kinds of things. But when in fact, it's supposed to be the other way around. You're supposed to be able to bring what you have to the table so that you can serve others. Others can be served. So you can make an impact in this world. And right now, while I'm saying this, what are you thinking in your mind, if anything, that you know you could be doing? Or, and I don't always like to say should, but in this case, I'm going to make an exception, but that you know you should be doing. Or you thinking to yourself, you know what, I really should be doing this because I know I'm good at this. Or this is something I would love doing. And I also, this is something I know there is a need for this. Write that thing down. Write it down. See, I've talked to people who said, you know what? I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know why I'm here. And I've said this more than once on this podcast. This is my theory, you guys. When it comes to knowing your purpose, I think that people know why they're here. I think people know what they would love to do, what they're good at, and what that purpose, what their purpose is. I think they know it already. I think where they run into problems is they're afraid to acknowledge it. Because if they acknowledge it, then they also have to acknowledge that they're not being obedient to their calling and that they've not stepped into their, what they call the highest and best self. They have not stepped into actually being their most magnificent self. They have to acknowledge that they've been holding back. Never, ever hold back. And I know I talked a little bit about this on yesterday, but let's talk a little bit more about why you must know yourself. The reason why you must know yourself, because when you know who you are, when someone speaks against you, then you won't be shaken because you know who you are. When people say things that aren't true about you, as though they live with you, they grew up in your house or they stayed in your home and they got to interact with you on a daily basis. Sometimes people will create an identity for you to give themselves a way out. I've had that happen to me. The more money I made in real estate, I had a couple of friends, and I've shared this before as well. I had well, not a couple. I just had one friend in particular. The others, I guess they just listened. I don't know. But as I started to make more money, and here's the thing, I was working from sun up to sundown. I mean, really, I would work until 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning trying to understand real estate and master real estate. So the thing about that is it started to work. I started to get a return. Okay. And so the more it happened, I decided I wanted a new car. And so when I bought my new car, one of my friends told some of my other friends that, that I had borrowed the money from a guy I was dating and that a man gave me the money. I didn't earn that money myself. None of the above was true. So was I shaken by that? No, it didn't bother me. Did I get upset because, oh, she's supposed to be my friend? Not really. By that time, my skin was a lot thicker and my mentor had prepared me for these kinds of things. But the point I'm making is when you know yourself, I knew I had done the work and I was excited about what the fruits that came from my labor. Okay. The hard work I did, I was entitled to that car. Plus I needed a new car. My other car, the mirror, outside mirror was hanging off. So, and the reason I know she said that is because the real estate office I was working in, the owner of that company happened to be at that same event. And she didn't notice that he was right behind her. And I always think that, God he has our backs, and in that case, he tapped her on the shoulder and he said, that's not true. So all my friends heard that. And of course, another one couldn't wait to come back and tell me because the broker, he didn't tell me. And so another one of my friends told me and said he tapped her on the shoulder and he told her that's not true. I went with her when she bought the car and I took her to get the car and she went by the bank and she got the money. And I'm the person that cut her commission check. So I know exactly how much money she's making. So I share that story with you because it is so important that you become grounded in who you are. Now, I talked about this a little bit on yesterday's podcast as well, about being like this people pleaser and going through that people pleasing phase. When you go through a people pleasing phase, it means you don't know who you are. It means you're letting the whole world tell you who you are, who you should be, how you should behave in order to, I guess, make them like you or even love you. But at some point, when you know yourself, then you find that you have a kind of self-love that is really unshakable. So that's another reason why you must know yourself. Now, as we go on and talk about this in terms of people who are speaking against you, here's the rest of that, or I'm going to add to that a little bit. There are people who you love and who love you. And we're talking family members and again, close friends who will be your biggest obstacle. So if you don't know who you are, they will speak against something that you're doing. And you know, in your heart of hearts, this is what you are supposed to do. And so you have to decide, okay, who am I? You have to know who you are. Also, when you don't know who you are, and you become like this people pleaser, or you tone things down for the sake of other people, then what you're doing is at that point, you're serving man, not in the capacity that you were called to serve, but you are serving them, instead of serving the God who created you and the way he created you. So think about that. And yeah, I'm going to say something that I haven't said. I don't think, and I've never said this on this podcast, but I'm going to say it now. And yeah, that includes if you're married, husband or wife. And I may have said something similar to that at one point. It's coming to mind, but never this blatantly. And so, husband or wife, okay, God is first. I mean, it's written. And so how do you become your best when you don't know you? How do you not serve people and allow other people to kind of dominate your life and you're sad and you're wanting? And so we have that's running rampant today. You know, a lot of people who are wanting, and then you have those who are making videos and coming up with things that really are not for the greater good, but they're doing it because they want attention. So when you know yourself, you become more confident in yourself. People can rob you of something, and I'm talking material things. If you have a lot of material things, or you've made a lot of money or something like that, and you feel like, okay, I lent money to this friend and that friend didn't pay you back, so you feel like you're robbed. But here's the thing: when you know yourself, people can rob you, but they can't keep you down. Someone can try and keep you from getting a promotion on the job. Someone can try and keep you from getting that contract that you need for your business. But at the end of the day, when you know yourself, you also begin to know what you're capable of. And that's a form of kind of robbing you, but they can't keep you down. So they cannot stop you. When you know yourself, again, you become unstoppable. And I say again, because I talked about this on a previous podcast. So here's the final thing that I want to share with you about knowing yourself. When you know yourself, when things don't go the way you hope, or you run into some challenges, or they don't quite play out the way you thought they would play out, and we're talking emotionally, mentally, and physically. Okay, like if you're working on becoming physically fit and you have a few little hiccups, okay, been there, done that. And so that happens. What happens is, because you know yourself, You know not to give up, and you're not going to give up. You will eventually do what it takes to get back on track. And then you'll start to make better choices that will lead you to the outcome that you desire. So this is why you want to spend some time with you. Spend some time asking yourself the right questions. And you have to be very honest with those questions. What is it I could be doing that I'm not doing? What is it? What outcome do I desire, and why is it not happening? So when you ask yourself very honest questions, that means you're open to receiving an honest answer. And these answers will come to you. If not in that very moment, they will come to you sometimes when you least expect. They'll come to you in the quiet. But either way, they will come, and you'll get back on track, and you will do life with power. You will be excited about who you are. So take the time to get to know you. Finally, it doesn't mean that just because you know yourself, you won't make mistakes. You won't do things that perhaps you wish you hadn't done. That is a part of the learning process. And that is a part of getting to know yourself. Sometimes people make it sound like, well, if you knew yourself, if you knew who you were, this wouldn't have happened. Not necessarily so. I think, well, put it this way. I think it happened so you could get to know yourself on a deeper level. I'll say it like that. And so when you get to know yourself on that deeper level, you become this very confident person, and you don't hold back on being your best and delivering your best. And when I say hold back, I'm not talking about being loud and obnoxious and saying things to insult other people, because a lot of that's going on today, a lack of respect. I'm not talking about that. People who know themselves, they don't have to do that. They don't come up with foul words to take the place of intelligent speech. They don't do that. Okay, now I'm not judging or criticizing anybody. I'm just stating a fact. The more we get to know ourselves, the better we can maneuver, and we become more comfortable with who we are. We become clear on where we're headed, and we stop looking outside ourselves for everyone else to fix things for us. I also talked a little bit about that yesterday. So as you can see, some of the things that I'm talking about today, it's a little bit of a continuation for yesterday. And finally, when you get to know yourself, you're always going to be honest with yourself. And honesty doesn't always mean you're going to say the things that even you want to hear, that you're going to say the things to yourself that you want to hear. For example, I talked about being on the physical fitness track, and so far so good. But I can tell you during the holidays, I mean, who doesn't love cakes and pies, right? And I can honestly say I didn't eat as many. Not that I eat a whole cake, but I didn't eat as many sweets as I would normally eat. But the point that I'm making is that I did eat some. And so in order for me to make sure that I get back on track and stay on track, I have to be honest with myself that this is these are the boundaries that you must set, or this is the direction that you must go. These are the actions that you must take in order to get to where you want to be. And so we learn to have a deeper respect for who we are. This is how you build that power that you have. And this leads to you gaining more power. You become more powerful, more excited about who you are, more excited about where your life is headed, where life is taking you. And you become, as I said earlier, more confident about the outcome, that it is a done deal. So that means your faith goes to a higher level. It's when we don't know ourselves that our faith goes down, because we're listening to everyone else and they're talking us out of our best life. Sometimes you have people that are closest to you, and we're going to wrap up on this because I kind of touched on this a little bit. I did the husband and wife thing. But sometimes you have people that are close to you. It could be a brother or a sister, a husband or a wife, other family members, that because they are not excelling, they are not doing anything great with their lives, they will try and talk you out of it. And they will talk about you when you're not around and say untrue things about you. And someone else in the family can't wait to tell you what's been said, because For two reasons. I'm going to say the not so good reason is because they want to shut you down as well. They want to make you feel badly about yourself. But sometimes they tell you because they want you to be aware of, yes, although you guys are blood, they're coming at you like an enemy. So with that being said, take the time to get to know yourself. It is so important. In order for you to achieve any goals that you set, physical goals, mental goals, emotional goals, financial goals, social goals, any kind of goals that you can think of, then in order for you to achieve those goals, and if you've never done it before, it's going to require that you grow and go to another level consciously. In order to go to another level consciously, you have to get to know you. You have to be honest about who you are. And so this is why you want to take the time to get to know yourself. Now, I know there are some different questionnaires out there, and some of the questionnaires always recommend that you ask your friends. What do they think about you? What do they see in you? What do they think your gifts are? These kinds of things. And yes, you can do that. Okay. And with the ones that you trust the most. But at the end of the day, I always tell people, listen, you can ask your friends that's on the outside of you, but go on the inside and ask the creator, the one who made you. God's not going to let you flounder around and not know what your gifts and talents are. He gave you those gifts and talents for you to get somewhere. And he will tell you who you must become in order for the gifts and talents to come to the forefront, in order for them to be fruitful in your life as well as in the lives of others. So take the time to be still and go inside instead of always looking to someone on the outside and asking people, well, what do you think? And what do you think? Okay, so with that being said, you guys, I want you to have a magnificent day. Enjoy this Tone It Up Tuesday and do life with power, because you are built by design to win. You do know that, right? Of course you do.